Welcome to week 2 of Howling with the Wolfe, everybody. I'm Cameron Wolfe with ESPN back here. Let's wrap some football. I was so pumped to see another week of football, first week of football that we've seen in forever. Wasn't a good week for the Dolphins, um, but we get another week, and obviously I want to preview you guys what's going to happen in this Bills game, Dolphins Bills game. Also want to talk about the NFL across the league, some things I saw in week 1. And then just kind of give you some nuggets that I can provide um, about the Dolphins, about the league. And then from there, I'll take your questions. So as always, fire away. Send them in your chat. I'm all with Facebook Live and Periscope. Send them through. I'll get to them. But I just kind of want to give an opening recap of week 1. Um, First things first, I was actually pleasantly surprised that the football was as good quality as it was in week 1. I was one of the people who thought it was going to be sloppy. We're going to see, penalties, guys tripping over their own feet, people running the wrong routes, quarterbacks throwing 3 interceptions, other than Fitz, other quarterbacks. Um, and it wasn't that way. It was actually pretty good quality football, which may be bad news for the preseason in the future, because if they can have this quality football without preseason, why do we need preseason? So I guess that was my general takeaway about week 1. As we talked about last week, I was interested to see how people responded and the league responded to sort of this new wave of social activism. And we saw teams doing different things. Right after I hopped off this video, the Dolphins dropped their video where 18 different players and Brian Flores kind of spoke out about calling the NFL out on this fluff, calling NFL owners out about their lack of action on issues of social injustice, and also saying they're going to stay inside for the anthem. So for me, the words and the message was more powerful than the decision to stay inside. But it was just another example of teams and players using their platform to sort of send a message. So we saw gestures, pregame gestures, we saw T-shirts, we saw decals, all of that. But I think that is, like I said, back in 2016, it was just a few guys, and now we're seeing it by the boatload, which I think is good and bringing attention on this issue. And then, like I mentioned, I also want to talk about the Dolphins and how they did. For Dolphins fans, you guys saw your team lose week 1 against the Patriots. It was really how I expected it, to be honest. I thought the Dolphins would start off really sluggish offensively. They haven't had a lot of chemistry up front in the offensive line, but surprisingly, that was not the issue. It was their chemistry between the quarterback and the receivers. We saw once Devontae Parker got hurt, this team did not look the same. They didn't really even look the same with him in there. And as the running game, they had nothing going. And Myles Gaskin was the guy toting the rock back there compared to everything. So I think this week, in week 2, you're going to see a different Dolphins team offensively. I think you're going to see them mix things up. I thought too often they were stale. It just looked a lot like they were running a lot of vanilla scheme. So I think you're going to see a lot more of them using some speed and separation more than just jump ball receivers as sort of their sole offense. And they also face a team with the Bills where they're not as complex in what they run in their defensive scheme as the Patriots. They run a lot of different things up front. So I think you're going to see a Bills team that's a little bit more predictable based on what they see on film. So maybe it allows the Dolphins to get a lot more into their base offense. That being said, they're going to need players to step up. Devontae Parker left with a hamstring injury this past week. He's iffy for this week. I've heard that it's not a significant injury. It's very minor. But the issue is this is a guy who's had soft tissue injuries his whole career. Last year was the first year he stayed healthy for all 16 games. And now he's got this hamstring injury again going in early in the season. Do you want to push him? I think it's very, very risky. Especially they got a Thursday night game coming on after this game. I don't know. They may push it for him, but I think that's a huge, huge risk. I might want to sit them even if they don't. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm going to keep you guys posted throughout the week on that. As always, if you guys don't know, at Twitter, I post updates throughout the week, throughout the days, and I also post stories on ESPN.com. And then I come here to rap with you guys, kind of give you my opinion and kind of wrap some nuggets with you guys on a different perspective. So as always, share this platform with all your Dolphins fans, all your NFL fans who want to get the nitty gritty, the good info, and we'll grow this thing and try to provide you guys with as much info as I can. So um, for those who don't know, we do this every Thursday at 6 p.m. unless my baby comes next Thursday and we won't do it, and we'll figure it out when we come back. But this is what we'll do. I post it on YouTube after through the weekends, and you guys can watch it. But really, this is my platform. I'll take any of your questions. If you guys want to start firing away, I'll take some of your questions, and then towards the end, I'm going to go ahead and preview the Bills and Dolphins game this week and tell you what I can expect. I got Nick Romo talking about 90 and 91. That's Shaq Lawson and Emmanuel Ogbah. He said they got paid a lot of money to stop the run. They better show up Sunday. Let's start with that. Okay, so Cam Newton was dancing all over this defense like it was prom. It was easy for him, and it was worrisome for me because this defense was supposed to be remade. They talked all off season about being more physical. They spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of draft resources. And to be honest, this run defense looked the exact same as it was getting ran over last week. So I've got issues with that. You mentioned Shaq Lawson and Emmanuel Ogbah. If you guys read my story earlier this week, I wrote a story about why the running quarterback, and Cam Newton in particular, was feasting on him. And Shaq Lawson was a guy who was victimized all game with that zone read. Every single time, Shaq's feet were stuck in cement. I'm telling you, I watched the tape. He was indecisive, and I think Shaq is a good player. I actually like that signing. I think that he's going to be a really good player for him. But either he was not prepared for what the Patriots were going to do, or they found his weakness, because every time they ran zone read, it looked like it was going. If it was on Shaq's side, it was going for 8 yards off rip. No matter if Cam kept it or the running back kept it. So that's got to be fixed. Because if I'm Josh Allen, if I'm the Bills, I'm not going to throw the ball until you prove to me that you can stop this. I'm going to just run zone read. It's going to be like Madden. Zone read. Run it again. Why would you change it? But team hadn't proved that they can stop. Why would you change it? All right. So I can go on for days with this. This is, it was surprising to me at how, because the Patriots offense was very vanilla. They didn't have a lot going on. They seemed like they were, really focused on doing what they knew they could do well. And they did it well. So, I'll talk a little bit about that when we go into the Bills, but I think that's something they got to really key in on. And I don't know if it, they talked about it being a coaching issue. A scheme issue as far as who they have the assignments for. And maybe they can fix that up this week. But if they don't, they're 0-2. It's going to be easy money. Let's see. Got a question here. Should we make a trade for a receiver? I think it's too early in the season. You got Malcolm Perry and you got Lynn Bowden, who you just traded for early in the season. You got to see what they got. I want to see one of them active this week. And you got Malcolm Perry, who we saw all during camp. He looked explosive. He had some speed. If Devontae Parker is not active this week, if he can't play, I'd imagine you get Malcolm Perry active. But even if Devontae is active, I want to see Malcolm Perry play. He brings something to the unit that the other guys don't have. He's got a little bit more speed, explosiveness. And then when Lynn Bowden catches up on offense, I want to see him too. But if neither of those guys get it going, then maybe you have to look at something, as time goes on and maybe, creating a trade. But I've told you guys this, and I'll say it again. I don't think that 2020 is the year the Dolphins are playing for. Although everybody wants to make the playoffs, I think 2021 is the year that you circle. So I had somebody ask me last week about the draft, and this is my teaser. I think playmakers will be the key for the draft next year. They built in the trenches this year. Next year, I think they really go heavy on playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, receivers, running backs, tight ends. That's my thought. Let's see. What is the earliest we see Tua this year, if all in your opinion? I got a couple questions about Tua, so I'll spend a little bit about Tua, everybody's favorite topic. I think that the most realistic route for Tua to start is the second half of the season. I think that if Fitz has more of those 3 interception games like he did this past week, then it might end up being October. But I think if he's going to balance it out, I do think that a lot of it was the week 1, not having chemistry, not having flow. I do think, as we've seen with Fitz, you're going to see some up and downs. But I think the Dolphins have a week 11 bye, week 10 or a week 11. I think that that's the perfect time to get Tua ready to start and let him start the last 6 games of the season. That's assuming that the Dolphins have kind of fell out of the playoff mix a little bit. They're not in contention. If not, then maybe he won't play into December or even 2021. As I told you guys last week, I wouldn't be opposed to a redshirt in the year. But you asked me the earliest. I think the very, very earliest, if everything goes haywire and Fitz is really terrible over the next 3 weeks, then maybe you get him ready on a 10-day stretch for Seattle in week 4. But I think the Dolphins are going to have a little bit longer leash for Ryan Fitzpatrick. So the very, very earliest, I think, is week 4 against Seattle, which is October 4th. But I think more realistic, it'd probably be sometime in November after the bye. So I hope that answers your question. I'll kind of go a little bit about the Tua thing because some people are asking, why not Tua now? My guy Chanel, I see him in the chat right now talking about start Tua now. I feel you, bro. Here's what I say. I want to see Tua play. It's more exciting to me when Tua plays than Fitz's play. It's more storylines. But here's the thing. I can tell you guys watching camp every day. Fitz was more further along than Tua was. When you watch the offense going, when Fitz was running it versus when Tua was running it, Fitz was moving the offense a lot better. That's just plain and simple. So I don't want to put Tua in a situation where he's not going to succeed. And you've got a young offense who hasn't had a lot of chemistry yet. 2 rookie offensive linemen who, although they play well in week 1, they're still rookies. I want to see everybody gel, and then I enter my rookie quarterback coming off an injury rather than just throwing him in the fire in a year where we're not truly competing for a championship. So that's why I say second half of the year or even 2021 for Tua, because there's no need to throw him in and get him traumatized in a situation where you're not even ready yet. So that's my view. We'll see if the Dolphins have their view, but that's why I say don't start Tua now. And plus, I'm about to have a baby. Let's not create all that drama going on at once. Let's wait until I get back into action, and then we can see Tua. Let's go. Let's see. I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and then we're going to do a little bit of a Dolphins-Bills preview, and then I'll answer some final questions, and we'll bounce. I got Jackson T. Barbie saying, I think the shortened preseason was the issue. I like our head coach. I got Eddie Taylor saying, I told my buddy who's a Dolphins fan, Fitz is the issue. So inconsistent. It was a winnable game. All right, so I'll touch on both of those topics at once. I only thought that of the interceptions that Fitz threw, I only thought that one was his fault, the second one. That one, he completely missed the linebacker that was sitting underneath, threw it straight to him. It wasn't a smart decision. Going into the end zone, it should have been a touchdown, and he threw a pick. So that was his fault. The first interception, Preston Williams slipped. And I love Preston Williams. I've been hyping him up on fantasy football chats all year. I still think he's going to have a good year. But, Stephon Gilmore put them paws on him, and he was slipping and sliding a lot during the game, and he hurt his team on that play. That was a Preston interception. That's his fault. Maybe you say there's a DPI there. He was a little physical with him, but you usually let guys play. My 6'5" receiver, I don't want you to be falling or getting pushed around by a corner. So that one's on Preston. The third one, he was trying to force it into action to Mike Gesicki late in the game. They were trailing. That's another situation where there could have been a DPI called. I don't mind that, and you're down by double digits in that point. You're trying to make a comeback. I don't really blame Fitz for that one. So I know people are saying, Fitz, because you see 3 interceptions. I haven't seen Fitz. I don't think Fitz was the reason why they lost that game. That being said, I did think they were outcoached at points last game. I thought, we saw them get out of their run game really early, and I think a lot of that was because the Patriots ran stuff up front that they weren't expecting. I talked about the zone read earlier. The players talked about saying on different plays, they were taught different things on how to key their reads. They looked like a group that was confused. And for coaches, it's your key to have your players not confused so they know what they're doing on their assignments. So I think on both sides of the ball, in my opinion, they were outcoached. And, it's not the first time that it's going to happen. It's not, they're going to be sometimes outcoaching another unit. But this week, I think a lot of the reason they lost is that preparation and the coaches, the Patriots, were ahead of them in that perspective. And also, I think the Patriots are also a little bit more talented than them right now. Let's see what we got here. Dave Marty says, who do you think will lead the backfield this week? Can you trust Gaskin? Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and attack that one. And then somebody asked about Malcolm Perry. Why isn't he active? So I'll go ahead and attack both of those. Try to do two at once. Um, Miles Gaskin was probably the biggest surprise of the day for me. I didn't think that he was going to be the lead back. I've been watching him all in camp. He looked really good. He looked like one of their most improved players. But that being said, he had been running with the threes. So when you see a guy running with the threes, you don't think that he's going to be getting the most touches of anybody on the field. So I think a lot of that is going to balance itself out this week. I don't expect Gaskin to be able to have the amount of workload and share that he had this week. I think you'll see more Matt Breida as they look for more explosiveness in their offense. I think you'll see some more Jordan Howard, assuming they can have some effectiveness with their power run game. I think that's something that they really struggled with, that they want to be able to see more of. So I think you're going to see that. I think it's going to be a three-headed backfield, but I still think that Jordan Howard and Matt Breida are going to get more touches when you look at things. And then in Malcolm Perry, I think it comes down to a numbers game. They've got 5 receivers that are active on a given day that they feel good about. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Isaiah Ford, Jakeem Grant, and Mac Hollins, right? Mac Hollins is a special teams player. He's one of their best special teams players, so he's going to be active on game day. Isaiah Ford is a guy who can play every position. They're comfortable with him. They feel like he's a guy, he's a glue piece. So he's going to be active every day. Jakeem's a guy who they feel like is a speed threat and who's their returner. So he's going to be active. And then obviously Devontae Parker and Preston Williams are the number 1 and number 2. So if you got 5 receivers that all have roles, what is Malcolm Perry's role? And I think that's why you saw him inactive last week, because he's got to have a role. And he's got to be active over somebody else. And you typically don't kick 6 receivers active unless they're all going to make an impact. So that being said, you've got to find a way to get more speed, more explosive, more separation as a receiving group. And I think that's where you take a shot on Malcolm Perry. So whether it's this week or next week, I think we see Malcolm Perry active. And particularly with Devontae ended up with that hamstring injury, this is a perfect week to try to see if you can get a guy like Malcolm Perry some action, whether it's in the slot or whether it's getting a few gadget plays. Let's get a little creativity. See him in the backfield. See him on some sweeps. See some screens. This is why you get players. So I agree with you. I think he should be active. Let me take 1 or 2 more. Like I said, I'm going to preview the Bills game. And then we'll go from there. Let's see. Okay, Alexa. Somebody said, Jerome Baker's play ever going to be superior to the energy he brings and the love fans have for him? And then let's go ahead and attack that, and I'll answer one on the O-line. And like I said, we'll preview this game real quickly. And I see your question about Zach Ertz. I see your question about Eric Rowe. We'll jump back around to those if you hold on with me for about 5 minutes. Let's see. Jerome Baker. So I think Jerome Baker actually had a pretty solid day this past game. He had a lot of tackles, 16 tackles. He got exposed a little bit in the run game, but who didn't? You give up 217 yards. Not many people are going to have a good game in the run game. Christian Wilkins was actually one of the few people who I think actually had a pretty good game against the run and the pass. But Jerome Baker, the thing with him is I think you look at a guy whose skill set is made for the modern NFL, but he's still a little bit limited. So Jerome Baker's a good coverage guy. He's very fast. He can move sideline to sideline. But he does struggle to get off blocks, and he's not as physical as you may want. So when you're playing a downhill team like the Patriots, that gets exposed a little bit more than when you're playing a team that can throw the ball all over the place. So I think in most situations, Jerome Baker is going to be the perfect guy to be on the field because you want fast linebackers who can cover. But when somebody's running down your throat like the Patriots were, then that's when it looks a little bit light when you got a 230-pound linebacker who struggles to get off blocks. So I think you just have to have it in the perspective of who Jerome Baker is. I don't think that he's ever going to be this all-pro linebacker who does everything right for you, never misses tackles, always covers the right guy. If that's who you're hoping that he's going to be, you're going to be disappointed. But I think if you look at him as a coverage, primarily linebacker, who can bring energy and move sideline to sideline, then I think you're going to be satisfied with what he brings. So I think that, he is limited as a player in that perspective, but he's limited in the right way. I would rather have a linebacker that can do what he does than, the guy who they got rid of in Raekwon McMillan, who's really good at the opposite things. He's really good at getting off blocks and covering the run game, but he struggles on pass coverage. So in the modern NFL, you'd rather have the other, even though you'd rather have a complete linebacker. So I hope that answers your question. Jackson T. Barbase, hopefully I pronounced that right, said, do you feel like the Dolphins' O-line rebuild shows promise? I definitely think it does. One thing that I was really impressed with was, and this is a silver lining of the game, was Austin Jackson and Solomon Kinley. I think they both played extremely well for their first game. I was pleasantly surprised. I was worried about that offensive line. I didn't know how they were going to play in their first game. Austin Jackson didn't give up a single sack. Solomon Kinley didn't either. The whole unit only gave up one sack in the game, and I think it was when in the fourth quarter when Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of ran into some action when they were coming back. So you're looking at a situation where the O-line and the passing blocking group did its job. They could be better in the run blocking group, but I know there was a lot of questions about Austin Jackson, whether he was strong enough, whether he was ready in the NFL, and I think at least in week one, he shut a lot of people up. And I'd love to see that. If your left tackle isn't the issue, then the Dolphins are taking a step. So I definitely think there's a lot of promise there. I think that Solomon Kinley has shown that he can be a long-term starter at right guard. And we didn't see a lot of Robert Hunt, but they hope that he can be an answer at right tackle either later this year or next year. So if you've got three guys you drafted who end up being pretty solid, solidified starters, and then you have Eric Flowers that you spent money on, and then Ted Karras may only be a one-year answer, but if you just have to only find a center answer, then you fix your offensive line. And that's been a huge issue for this team for so many years. So I definitely think there's promise, Jackson on the O-line. And I think that's something that Dolphins fans can put their hat on, even if they end up going 6-10 or 7-9 this year. Quick preview, and like I said, I'll answer a few more questions, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here. I'll take my wife. We're going to go on a walk. She's ready to pop out this baby. I'm telling you, we are 39 weeks tomorrow, and we're going to be coming out any day now, and she wish it was yesterday. So I'm trying to keep her active. We start to do some things. She actually said she wanted to walk today, which usually is a stressor for me to get her out there. So definitely got to make sure we get that in before the game. So we'll wrap it for a few more minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. Bills, Dolphins. So spoiler alert, I'm picking the Bills this week. I picked the Patriots last week, and I was right. Unfortunately, I fear that I'm going to be right again. 27-16 Buffalo. I do think that it's going to be tough for them to solve their issues, defending the run, defending quarterback runs as a whole in 1 week. And they gave up 217 last week, and this offense is even more dynamic than the Patriots. They have more receivers than Stephon Diggs and John Brown and Cole Beasley. So the Dolphins are going to be able to load up the box like they were in the second half against the Patriots. So I do feel like the Bills have a lot more offensively, and that's going to be trouble. And then defensively, the Bills have one of the best defenses in the league. Another group that plays really good man coverage, and their cornerback group is really good. So it's going to be tough for Devontae Parker and Preston Williams, Devontae if he plays, to feast. So you're going to need somebody else to make plays. So I just don't see it this week. I think they're going to lose. I think that when you look at how the Dolphins win, I think it's going to come to explosive plays. Can you get Matt Breida to break off the big one? Can you get something downfield to a Devontae Parker or Preston Williams? Can somebody make a turnover on defense to change the dynamic of the game? Do they test Xavier or Byron Jones and they show why you paid them all that money? Can Shaq Lawson have a revenge game against his former team? These are all things that have to go right for the Dolphins to win this game. So the Bills, in my opinion, are the favorites to win this division, and I think they show why they do it on Sunday. A few more questions. I promised my guy here that I was going to get to his Zach Ertz question. He's an Eagles fan. Thoughts on Zach Ertz for a Miami 2021 first-round pick. So this is actually interesting to me because I think that tight end is an area where they can improve. Sorry, Mike Gesicki fans. I still think that he's limited as a player, and I think it really impacts the Dolphins' offense because they have to show their cards essentially. They either have to be limited with tight end on the field who can't block, or that they're going to him as a passer. And I still don't think he's explosive enough as a passer for you just to warrant him as being your lead guy overall. So I do think they need to upgrade tight end, whether it's via trade or whether it's via draft next year. That's just my opinion. That being said, Zach Ertz, the question becomes your timeline. So Zach Ertz, and I watch the Eagles a lot, that Zach Ertz has been a really key cog on that unit, but he's got contract issues, right? And Dallas Goedert is a baller on that unit. They should have drafted Dallas Goedert. Miami should have instead of Mike Gesicki. But that's another question. That being said, do they want to expedite things? Does Miami feel like they're close enough? Zach Ertz is a type of trade you make when you feel like you're a piece or two away. I don't feel like the Dolphins are a piece or two away. Zach Ertz is about 30. How much time does he have left on his legs? Does he have maybe 3-4 years of quality play? Does that fit with the Dolphins' timeline? I'm not sure. I think I would much rather see the Dolphins go ahead and use that 2020 first or second round pick on the tight end and what's supposed to be a really good tight end draft. So although Zach Ertz would be a really good player, he would be arguably their best receiving option, and I'd love to see him in Miami. I don't think that's probably the best thing for their timeline and what they're trying to build here in Miami. So that's my view on that. Eric Rowe needs to get better in the run game. Sort of what I talked about. Nobody played well in the run game. And when you play a lot of nickel and dime like the Dolphins do, you force your DBs to tackle. And when your DBs can't tackle well, then you get exposed. And Eric Rowe talked a lot about run fits, and that's something that he worked on this offseason. And like I said, it's just week one, so I don't want to down these guys like they're never going to improve. But as long as the Dolphins kind of focus on being a heavy DB team, teams are going to challenge them on the ground and see if they can handle stopping the run in nickel and dime coverages. That's going to happen all year. Let's see. I got a couple more here that I'm going to answer, and then we're going to stop. I talked a little bit about the Dolphins against the run and whether they can rebound. We talked a little bit about this. Somebody asked, when Tua starts, do you move Austin to right tackle or do you wait for Robert Hunt? I think you stick Austin Jackson at left tackle and leave him. A lot of people think that's interchangeable. I don't think so. I talked to a lot of offensive linemen. The comparison I always get is try wiping your hand with your wiping your butt with your non-dominant hand. If you're right-handed, try wiping your butt, sorry for the visual, with your left hand and see how fluid that's going to be. That's how fluid it is to switch from left tackle or right tackle if you've been doing that your whole life. Austin Jackson, the left tackle, that's what he does. He's doing it well. Leave him there. You get Robert Hunt, who's a big physical guy. Once you can trust him, put him at right tackle. If you can't and he's a guard, then move him in the guard and you get you a new right tackle. I don't think you switch it around just because Tua's left-handed. So that's my view on that. And then if you could rank the top 5 first-round draft picks of the last 20 years, how would you rank? I honestly don't have a Rolodex here to kind of rank picks, but I think a couple stand out to me, and it's sad because the ones that stand out to me are the guys who are no longer here. They drafted Laramie Tunsil, which I thought was a really good draft pick in 2016. He fell because of the gas mask thing, if y'all remember. And now he's in Houston, and he's the highest. I don't know if he's still the highest paid, but he was the highest paid left tackle in the league. I think he's a top 5 left tackle in the league. It was a great pick by Chris Greer, but they traded him. So they got a great haul for him, and part of that haul was Noah Igbenogany. I think part of it ended up being Solomon Kinley, and they still have a first and second round pick next year. So that Laramie Tunsil pick may end up leading to 3 or 4 new starters. You'd love to have the players, but 3 or 4 new starters is pretty solid. And I think another pick that kind of stands out to me is Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I think is gonna, was an All-Pro last year. I'm on record saying that I don't think they should have traded him. I think they should have made it work. So I guess in the last decade, I think those are 2 of their better, first-round picks, and unfortunately, both of them are not here. I do think Xavier Howard was one of their best picks this decade too, and he is here. So just to make it balanced, that's what my view is on that. So yeah, man. Eddie Taylor talking about Arians calling out Brady. I guess I'll end with this because I love to see coaches show some fire, but it was eye-opening to show that. I think that Bruce Arians is one of the most unique coaches in the league. I would love to cover him. He says whatever's on his mind. But my question always is, do you say the same thing behind closed doors to these players as you say it in public? If you do, and they understand you, then you're in good shape. But if you're saying stuff that you don't say to your players and they're hearing it through the first time in the media, that's when it gets a little sticky. So I don't know the answer to that, but I hope that Bruce Arians has a relationship with Brady and a relationship with his players so that he's telling him, like he's telling Brady, hey, dog, those interceptions were your fault. You should have did this. And then he goes tells the media. If that's cool, then that's cool. That's sort of my view on that. Some coaches never like to criticize players in the media, which I think is not a great idea because some players respond best to criticism, and then some coaches are willing to do it with differing results. So, as always, guys, thank you guys for joining me. As like I said, we put this up on YouTube this weekend. We'll be back here next Thursday before the game, pre-game Howling with the Wolf chat before our Thursday night game, assuming Baby hasn't arrived by then. If you don't see me next Thursday, Baby has arrived, and we'll catch up after